Go blind in a million sockets. This life's unkind and she's killing the softest. Can't sleep at night cause the voices are talking about something I wrote. I'm clutching my throat, gasping for air. I won't choke, I can't bleed, I can't die, I won't scream if I lose everything. Don't follow the flash or prove up the encrypt. A bloody knuckle till I break out the sarcophagus. This terror wears in nights.
All right, then. That was the thing that happened. Hi, all you PC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition of the Biconic Review of Honor, otherwise known as the Bro. Your weekly Ring of Honor television review squad here. I am your host, Mikey. Joined with me this evening, first and foremost, is Mr. A to Z himself, Andrew, who is loving the ROH as of the last couple of weeks. It's okay. We're going to talk about it tonight because this was an interesting show, to say the least. So we'll get there. And then, of course, joining us from a brief hiatus that was last week, we have the Phantom Stranger himself, Jesse. Welcome back to the review. We missed you last week.
Happy to be back.
Of course, JVL is doing theater things, so he'll probably be popping in a little bit later, but that is okay because he left me in charge. So we'll see how well that goes. We're about to burn this. We're about to burn this place to the ground. It's going to be
great.
It's
going to be great.
So, as I mentioned before, this was an interesting ROH. I feel that there were some good points, there are some questionable points, and then there's some. I'm probably going to catch some heat for this. Things that most people didn't like that I did. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. But we kick off Ring of Honor episode 77 this week with the cold open from the board of directors himself, Paul White, aka
The entire board.
He's the whole board. He's so big.
I mean, for reals, that man has a big personality and he's just built like a big boy. Anyways, so Paul White talks about how amazing Ring of Honor is doing right now, and then he gets interrupted by Mr. and Mrs. TV. So Johnny TV and Taya Valkyrie get into this conversation with the board of directors himself, talking about that Johnny TV deserves a title shot. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, sir, you may have won matches, but you can't just stake claim to championships. But then board of directors is like, hey, you know what? That's a good idea. So, Johnny, you're going to fight Mark Briscoe for the ROH World Championship. I'm like, well, there goes that idea out the window. So I have come to the understanding that championship matches are just going to be made sometimes. No story, no through lines. Most of them anyways. We're just going to put on we're just going to throw people and have matches. Now, sometimes that works. And I think there's only really two matches, in my opinion, that kind of worked, but with that logic. But we'll get to those. Because then we didn't have to wait long from this, because we immediately jump into what really kicked off the show is the ROH World Championship match. Johnny TV taking on the champion Mark Briscoe in this bout. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of surprised that this was at the very beginning of the show. I expected this to be towards the middle. Do I think it should have been in the main event spot? Probably. Well, you know what? I'm going to reserve my thoughts when we get to the actual main event because, oh boy, I have feelings on that. Now, as far as the match itself went, I mean, it was a standard bout. I'd love me some Johnny TV. He is fantastic. I'd love me some Mark Briscoe. At this point, I have to become numb to the fact that anytime we have a championship match, I just have to become numb to the fact that the title ain't changing hands here just because. But I digress. I thought this was a fine match. You know, again, I like Johnny. I like Mark Briscoe, but this was just a match to have a match. I thought it was okay. So, Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. We have the World Championship match kicking off the show. How did we feel about this particular match between Johnny and Mark?
I, too, was surprised that it was here. I'll start off by saying I thought the match was good. It was, it was a solid match between the two of them. If this had just been some match, would have been fine, all that stuff. But no matter how well they did, I couldn't get behind it because we've already seen things on social media, their social media, talking about Mark Briscoe defending the title against the Beast Mortos. So I was like, are we going to see that match first and then this match with Johnny? Oh, no, we're seeing this. Okay, so there's one signal that Johnny's not going to win this match. The fact that it's opening the card and the fact that it's on the weekly show. So it would have had to have been stellar for me to get invested in this match. It was good. I mean, they both did what they both do. And, so it wasn't bad, but it just didn't do anything for me.
Jesse, same question to you. We had an ROH World Championship match kick off the show. What are our feelings about this?
I actually kind of liked that it kicked off the show. I have resigned myself to the fact that I go into every Ring of Honor match pretty much knowing who's going to win because of all the stuff that happens outside of the scope of Ring of Honor. So I'm just going in to try and be a little more positive and enjoy them for what they are. The match itself, I thought was pretty good. I knew Johnny TV wasn't going to win, but I enjoyed the match and the story of how we got to the end there. I liked that Taya finally got kicked out, and then I think someone else was causing interference later in the night that they got kicked out. I was like, oh, the refs are paying attention. Okay, they must have that extra monitor or something. But, I enjoyed this match overall.
I agree with you, Jesse. Like I said before, I thought this was a decent match, not necessarily my favorite, but to no surprise, Mark Briscoe does retain his championship, but this will not be the last time Mark Briscoe makes an appearance tonight on ROH, so we'll talk about that when we get to it, because then we get a pre-tape promo from last week's show of Robbie Eagles talking about how TMDK is the best faction in wrestling, and to be honest, he's not necessarily wrong if I'm being completely real. And he wants a championship match. So in this promo, he calls out and challenges Atlantis Jr. to a ROH World TV Championship match that is scheduled for later in the show, which we'll talk about, which then leads into one of my personal top 3 matches of the evening. We have a singles match, Blake Christian taking on Leo Rush. can we just get this on Ring of Honor television every single week? Let's make a best of 7 series out of these two. As I immediately saw this on the card and I was just like, oh, please let it be good. And for me personally, this match lived up to what I wanted it to be. Blake Christian is amazing. Leo Rush, now that his attitude has toned down in the last couple of years and he's less cocky, is a phenomenal wrestler. You put these two together, like it's a win-win for everybody watching. It had everything. You have flips. It had dives. It had some really fun stuff. And Leo Rush does pick up the victory. And I love that Blake Christian is carrying his heel persona from GCW and on the independents into ROH, which I love because prior to this, we knew Blake was a face, like everybody loves him. And now he's just being deterred. And I love it. Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. I don't know about you, but for me, like I said, this was in my top 3 of this week's episodes, and I already knew it was going to be. But how did we feel about Christian taking on Rush?
I really enjoyed it. Like you know, when I saw that the two of them were going to face each other, I knew it was going to be a really fun and entertaining match. They got a decent amount of time to do the work that they can both do. I thought it was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure when Blake Christian came out at first. I was like, are we going to get like a Ring of Honor Blake Christian and he's going to be more of a face? And then when he started doing more of his kind of douchey things, I was like, okay, cool, he's going to be the same guy. He does it really well. And I like the way that they kind of played off of each other too. It was really good. So yeah, this was definitely one of my top matches of the night. I don't know if I actually had a match of the night, but this would have definitely been in contention. It was a really fun match.
It definitely was. Jesse, as someone who is not too familiar with Blake and Leo in depth, how did we feel about these two going at it on ROH television this week?
I was very happy to see Blake Christian back because he'd been off of ROH for a while and he was off doing other things. And I wish I had the time to commit to watch everything that, you do, Mikey. But that being said, I was happy to see him back. Leo Rush, he surprised me with his performance in that 6-man match at whatever the most recent pay-per-view was. I forget the name, Death Before Dishonor. So I was excited to see him again. And I thought this match over-delivered for me. It was better than I was expecting to be. I expected Blake Christian coming back to ROH to pick up the win. So this was one of the few times where, again, like I said, I go into each match knowing who's going to win, and I was wrong, and I was happy about that.
Yeah, this match definitely had me smiling from bell to bell. These two are good workers, and when you put them together, magic is going to happen. Like I said before, Leo Rush picks up the victory. Blake Christian just kind of shrugs him off, doesn't do the handshake, rolls out the ring. And then that leads into our first in-ring segment of the evening, where we had, 2/3 of MIT come out to the ring. So the fallen goddess herself, Athena, and Billy Starks. And we literally have an MIT training session while Athena's cutting this promo simultaneously. Billy Starks in the sandals had me dying the whole entire time. And just the facial expressions, it was just awesome. And of course, Athena is cutting the promo that we know and love from her, that she is the best. She's disappointed in Billy Starks for losing her ROH Women's World TV Championship, and that Athena is so undefeated that there's nobody on this roster who can beat her. And then we get the familiar music of the Living Dead girl themselves, Abaddon. Billy Starks and Athena are looking around for Abaddon. Abaddon is creeping up behind Athena. She cuts the promo saying that even Abaddon is scared of Athena. She turns around. I don't know if you boys laughed at this. I enjoyed this where Abaddon just screamed in Athena's face and she sold it perfectly. Athena's like, and just drops everything and gets out of there. So it seems that we're setting up Athena and Abaddon having a feud. On the one hand, I'm mad because we here like Abaddon. They're fantastic. For those of us that were in New Jersey in May, we got to talk to Abaddon and they were awesome. On the other hand, though, at least now we're giving Athena another feud that is not the Red Velvet Queen Aminata saga that we've been telling. So anytime we get to see Abaddon on my screen, I am here for it. I'm going to go to Jesse first to spice things up a little bit. So again, Jesse, as one of the few folks that got a chance to meet Abaddon back in May and knowing what they can do, how do we feel about Abaddon being the next challenger to Athena's title?
I'm happy they're doing something with them because they need to be on TV. They are way too talented to be showing up every 7th week or so. So while I think I might know where this feud is going, I'm happy that they're involved in something. The other part is I'm not happy. I'm upset. Leave Billy alone. I'm getting pissed at Athena. How dare you?
Hey, I mean, we're starting the pot. We're planting those seeds because who knows?
When you screw up, you got to pay the price.
Yeah, that is not a fair price to be paying, though.
Well, guess what,
and
Jesse?
If Athena said a few months ago that I'm your mom now, okay, well, that's child abuse.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, you're not inherently wrong. I'm going to come to you, Andrew. Again, Abaddon's back on our television screens. We are excited about it. So how do we feel? Well, how do we feel about the promo itself and the fact that Abaddon's going to be facing Athena for however long we want to run this?
You know, I mean, the promo, obviously things are building to some kind of conclusion between Athena and Billy. I was really hoping that, you know, we would get some kind of feud for Athena that will take the pressure off of the stuff between Athena and Billy, in the sense of that having to be the story that carries it the whole time. I think giving her somebody else to feud with is really smart, and I think Abaddon is a good choice. Because Athena and Abaddon can feud for a while. Athena can stretch it out for a good amount of time because, you know, it's a monster challenger, you know, a supernatural challenger, whatever kind of category you want to put Abaddon into. So that's something that Athena can try and like duck and dive away from and try to avoid having to actually have a showdown with them. So you can stretch that out a little bit and eventually have that showdown. Again, I never have super strong faith in promotions giving a title to a monster competitor because they always seem to get stuck on being unsure of how to handle them, you know, whether they're giants or supernatural or whatever, because it's, you create something that's unbeatable, unstoppable, then how do you eventually have them not be the champion? So I don't foresee Abaddon dethroning Athena. It would be amazing if they got to be a Ring of Honor champion. But
what if we just have the ref stop the match, though? That's always a good idea with these supernatural characters, isn't it?
Oh, no, yeah. You can, I mean, one way or the other, I don't think Athena is going to lose the title to Abaddon. No. But yeah, there's still ways to keep them safe from like weakening either competitor. But I'm excited for it because this could be a really good feud. It's something fresh. You know, we haven't really seen, the closest to this I think we've seen for Athena's reign was really Nyla coming in because she was more of the giant type character, and so that was a way of like striking fear into Athena. So I think Abaddon's another good choice for that, and it gives her something else to think about while also having to deal with Billy and some of the other stuff that's going on, and can stretch that out and I think build us to an eventual showdown with that as well.
Well, since you brought it up, speaking of monsters that cannot be stopped, the Beast Mortos has been on a run. And this is exactly the person that Mark Briscoe is addressing his promo backstage to, because he's still mad about the fact that Beast Mortos beat him weeks ago on Dynamite. And so now he wants to put this to bed. And so he challenges the Beast Mortos for the ROH World Championship match. And it seems like we're getting it next week, probably, I think. I love Mark Briscoe, but he didn't make too much details clear. But I'm pretty sure we're getting it next week. Meanwhile, you have Ishii in the background just being, you know, the silent hype man, which was great.
I don't think he knew where he was, honestly.
I'm looking at Ishii. I'm like, I think that's Andrew. Oh, no, wait. That's Tomohiro Ishii. Love you, Andrew.
I had to shave my head for that.
For reals, but I wouldn't ask you to do that because we move on to our next match. And honestly, I love me some Shibata, but we could have done without this match. Honestly, it did not need to be here, but we had Arya Daivari of the Premier Athletes taking on Katsuyori Shibata. Again, this match is telling the story that Shibata is at odds 3-1 because it's Arya, Tony, and Smart Mark out in the ring, and Shibata still pulls out the win. I love Shibata. I'm happy he won, right? Because if he had lost, I would have had bigger problems. But I'm gonna be honest, you guys. Nobody cares about the premier athletes because you have shown them to be consistently losing, not just on ROH television, but across the whole entire umbrella. And you know, at this point of the show, I was just okay. Well, I'm happy Shibata won, but you know, that's it for the premier athletes. And then Tony Nese made me very upset by the end of the show, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Does anyone have anything to add to Arya and Shibata's match? No?
Nope.
Okay. Cool. Shibata
They
wins.
didn't even.
No. Ian Caprice tried. They did not do well. We move on from a match we didn't care about to a tag team that everyone in this group is a fan of and loves. We had MXM Collection, you know, cutting this promo, and then they get interrupted by Maria Kanellis and Griff Garrison. You guys, this whole thing was stupid, but I loved it because Griff Garrison read the whole situation wrong, and he did not touch the tips with MXM Collection. How dare he?
He went full bore.
This was so innuendo coded. I loved it so much. It was so
very thinly veiled of the code.
I was like, this is so stupid. I love this though. Also, I need Mansoor's jacket. I'm just putting it out there. Like, I didn't realize it was lace on the sleeves until he turned to the side. I'm like, I want that jacket now, you guys. But MXM Collection is the best thing, and I want good things for them. We all do. Shout out to Mansoor, by the way. He's going to be busy boy the next 2 weekends, you know, wrestling in CMLL tonight and then being part of the 20-man Grand Prix tournament in CMLL representing the international team, which I'm super excited for. I love this character, and we all know that Mansoor can actually wrestle, so this is going to be fantastic. So, okay, on paper, I wasn't too excited about this match, and by the end of this, I did not hate it. But we have, you know, representing the Outcast, we have Harley Cameron taking on New Japan, you know, dojo student Aviva Van. Shout out to Aviva. She be getting in the work here in ROH and in this umbrella. We love us some Aviva Van. Again, me and Adolfo and maybe El Buntador, wherever he's at. You know, I understand Harley's not the best wrestler. She's still very green. However, I do hope she does get better because I actually do like her a little bit. That being said, again, she is still very green, and that is the nicest thing I'm going to say. But it wasn't inherently bad. There have been worse matches I've seen, but we'll see how my other co-hosts feel. Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. We've talked about Harley Cameron in the past. We know she's green. How do you, if you were to rank her in this match, how do you rank her up, and what are your feelings overall with Harley versus Viva?
So I was kind of bummed when I saw this because I knew that Harley Cameron was going to win, and that kind of bumped me out for Viva Van because it's one of those situations where if Harley Cameron wasn't an AEW wrestler, it was one of those ones like, oh, hey, we could see Viva Van actually pick up a win in Ring of Honor because she so often shows up and wrestles the top talent in the women's divisions. And knowing how much work she puts in, all the places she goes, and what she's done, being willing to go out there and face all these people. So I kind of was hoping that she would get a victory here, but just knowing that it's against Harley Cameron, who they're trying to build up in AEW, kind of bummed me out to begin with. I was pleasantly surprised. I haven't seen much of Harley Cameron, but from what I've seen, this was the best that I've seen her look. And that could be dance partners. It could be just she's getting more experience. They're both pretty new as far as, careers go. So, there wasn't anything extremely bad about the match. There wasn't anything phenomenal either. But I was kind of hoping that we could see Viva Van get a little bit of a bump here. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where this match sat for me. It kind of was what it was. It was what I expected, but I was surprised at least with what I saw from Harley Cameron, and then at least Viva Van got some chances to like do a little bit more in this match.
Fair point. Jesse, same question. Harley versus Viva. How did you feel?
I mean, I echo a lot of Andrew's sentiments around the match. Honestly, this match frustrated me because it was the only women's match on the card. We got a women's segment, but this was the only women's match on the card, and I was disappointed going into it knowing that this is what it was.
Yeah, ROH, you did the women dirty this week because, again, this was the only match. Again, Harley Cameron does pick up the victory, which then immediately rolls into our next match. This is the grudge match, if you want to call it that. But finally, we put this feud to bed. This is Serpentico versus Griff Garrison. If Serpentico loses, he can't. Number one, he doesn't get the mask back that Griff and Maria stole from him, but then he must unmask himself and wrestle without a mask for the rest of his wrestling career. And I'm going to be honest, when that stipulation was added, when we were getting this match, I'm just like, oh, there's no way Serpentico's losing this one. And sure enough, I was right because Serpentico does win. He does get the mask back. So I didn't hate this match as much as I thought I was going to. Serpentico is a damn good worker. I love him. And I like watching Griff Garrison. So this match was decent. It wasn't anything to write home about, but I thought this was a fun match. And finally, we could put this feud to bed. Seriously, that's the important part. That's why I enjoyed this match more. Because now, knock on wood, finally we put this feud to bed. Andrew, we made it to the end of this long feud. So how do we feel about the match?
I mean, this match definitely suffered from being the end of a story that went on way too long. It just felt like everybody in it, from the bookers to the wrestlers, just didn't have the steam that they had when this all started. If this would have happened like 4 or 5 months ago, this could have been a really awesome match to have, especially with the stipulation on the line. I think obviously neither one of them would have gone for this because neither one of them wants to go through with the loss, but you had the opportunity for doing an incredible hair versus mask match between these two. My favorite thing out of this match was Serpentico's alternative mask. I hope he keeps wearing that mask. That mask was awesome. I loved it.
Seriously, shout out to the mask maker, man. That was beautiful, and I need to know where to buy one. Jesse, same question to you. We reached the end of a feud that went on way too long. So how did we feel that the ending point of this feud was for you?
It felt like exactly what it was. They couldn't do it anymore because Cole Carter had surgery. They knew that this was beyond stale. They had to do something to wrap it up, and this is what they came up with. So it felt like it served its purpose, and that's the best thing I can say over it. Like, the match itself was pretty good. It was just everything else, and the timing behind everything was just too long, too much.
I'm going to be honest, we could have had this at Supercard, and I would have been okay with it. Like, we could have had the ending happen at Supercard. But I digress. Serpentico does get the mask back. I'm with Andrew. I hope the alternative mask is what he wears from now on, because that looks tight. It looks amazing. Which then, after this match is over, we shoot backstage as not Lexi, as Athena has now dubbed her, is interviewing Athena and Billy talking about Abaddon and everything. Athena's like, nah, we got to get out of here. Billy, go get the car. Like, we're out. No zombie, scary hussy is going to take this title from me, not Lexi. And then she promptly leaves. Again, I'm happy that as much as I love Queen in Red, we're putting a pause on them for a little bit, which I'm okay with. And, Athena versus Abaddon should be a really fun feud. Okay, you guys, so get ready, because this might cause some discourse, because next up we have Anthony Henry and his cousin Beef taking on some local talent in Vinny Mazzaro and Dante Leon. I'm going to be honest, you guys, like, I kind of dig Beef. I think he's great. He's, to be completely honest here, and to be, transparent with the audience here, I am rooting for the big boys. I love the comedic big boys like Otis is like one of my favorite peoples. Initially, when we got the first round of the Iron Savages, when they were these comedic big boys, I love them. So Beef is filling in the void that the Iron Savages left, since now they're trying to be heel, which is still not working. But I digress.
Who?
Right. Anyways. I actually like this match. And normally I don't like squash matches, but this did exactly what it needed to. Anthony Henry is still a fantastic wrestler, and Beef is just out here being Beef. Like, I can't be mad at this. Andrew, I know we're probably going to disagree on this, but hey, Anthony Henry and his cousin pick up a win here on, over some local talent. How do we feel about the match? And, how are we feeling about Beef in general?
I actually enjoyed it too. It was a squash match, but Beef brings a different energy than JD Drake brought to it. The workhorsemen were very straightforward. Even when JD Drake was having a good time, they were very kind of serious about what they were doing. But now they're kind of playing into this hoss of a guy in Beef who just is having a ridiculously good time, and then Anthony Henry kind of being the foil to that, kind of being the straight man to his funny man. And I'm interested to see where it goes. I do like that when Beef got into the ring, they kind of showed what he could do. So I think it could be interesting. I still like the idea of Anthony Henry getting a chance after seeing him in that Pure Rules match, getting a chance to kind of like explore that more. But seeing the two of them together, it was entertaining, and so I'm interested to see more. But I want to get to see more development too, of like more quality, not just see them constantly, go up against local talent. But this was a fun way to have their first tag team match in Ring of Honor.
Right. And honestly, we've seen it in other companies in ROH history too, that odd couple tag teams can actually work if you develop them beyond just being a gimmick. Jesse, same question to you. Anthony Henry and Beef, how do we feel about them as tag team, and your overall thoughts about this match?
I liked this match so much better than I was expecting to. I was very happy with Beef. He brought some energy that was really needed in there. Andrew, do you have a new name for this team yet?
No, I was trying to work on a few things. I came up with Workhorse Beef, but I think there's something better out there for the two of them.
The only one that I have, because Anthony is traditionally an Italian name, I was thinking Beefaroni.
Yes!
I feel like that would be their finisher.
The Beefaroni.
Okay. You know what? I'll take that. But this match, it delivered better than I was expecting it to. So I want to see more of these two. I mean, like you had mentioned earlier, where are the Iron Savages? Because I feel like that would be a good match to see, a beef off, if you will. Yeah.
I would love that. Beef, if you ever find this video, like, you got a big fan in me. And Anthony Henry, you too. Like, I like this tag team. Okay, so we move on, and for the rest of the show, it's just championship galore, because we have a Proving Ground match and 2 championship matches that close out the show. So we get to our Proving Ground match. This is a ROH Pure Championship Proving Ground match. We are driving this feud into the ground, as Caprice and Ian said on commentary, so I laughed at this. But we have Action Andretti taking on our ROH Pure Champion Lee Moriarty in this Proving Ground match. You guys, I did not hate this match. I actually kind of dug it. I didn't know how Action and Lee were going to be able to work together, given the fact that Action is more high-flying oriented and Lee is more ground-based, but I actually kind of dug this match. And you know what? I love this. If anything, I love the story that it told, because Action is not used to the Pure Rules style of wrestling. So immediately he broke the first rope break within the first 30 seconds of the match. He's like, oh, okay, it's going to be that kind of match, right? And you know what? He got some offense in, but Lee obviously got the best of him, made him submit. Lee is with the winner, and Action does not get a future championship match shot. Andrew, we know, I know, you know, the world knows, we love us some Pure Rules matches, especially when it comes to Proving Ground and championships. So how do you think Action fared in this match against our champion?
I mean, they kind of went down the route that I thought they would go down. And Action burned through his rope breaks super quick. I mean, the first one he did was his little trick on the ropes to break in a wrist lock. And I felt like that was going to be kind of his downfall. So I liked that they played into that. It really showed his lack of understanding of the rules, or just instinct in the rules. But I thought they did a good job of him keeping up with it, because I think you put these two in a match without pure rules, you're going to get a lot of the same wrestling. So it could be interesting to see them continue to hash this out a bit. Maybe Action Andretti got a taste for it, and now he wants to prove that he can, kind of hang there in the pure division. So maybe he gets some more matches and kind of earns another shot. Or they may just finally squash this thing or whatever. I doubt it, because it seems like that's something they're going to go back to with Shane Taylor Promotions and Top Flight. But this match overall, I thought it was a good, fun match to show someone that's not as fluent in the pure rules against someone who obviously is the champion in it. And I thought it was another good way to make Lee Moriarty look really strong. And I liked the way that the finish went, with Action Andretti being out of rope breaks and being caught in the submission. And he knew once he touched the ropes and it didn't work, that he just had a tap, because he wasn't getting out of it and he couldn't take it anymore. So I thought they told a really good story with the wrestling too.
Jesse, same question to you. This is a pure championship proving ground match. How did you feel Action and Lee did in their match?
It's hard for me to really tell, because I'm so used to Action Andretti's typical ring style. It was interesting to see him have to kind of change how he works. I think sufficiently whelmed is the best way I can describe how I thought about the match. It didn't blow me away. It didn't underdeliver. I would have liked it to go a little bit longer, but I also understand that that's kind of the way a pure rules match works, is you only have the 10 minutes. Or proving ground match, excuse me. So yeah, to me, it wasn't anything to write home about, but I'd like to see them explore this a little bit more with people who don't traditionally work proving ground pure rules matches, and put them in that space.
I like that. I like that a lot. And honestly, if we continue to have Lee be given something, I would love to see him get an actual feud and not just be thrown matches together. But hey, he's already doing a lot better than our former pure rules champion, though.
He said more defensive, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, part of that's not Wheeler's fault. He was out with concussion protocol, so I'm glad he is.
Totally understand. It was more of the administration's fault for not doing something about that.
Yeah, we could have figured something out, had a tournament. Anyways, I digress. Because then my spirits got uplifted once again, because we get a recap of what happened at Death Before Dishonor in the Texas death match between legit Layla Hirsch and Diamante. And we get a post Death Before Dishonor promo from Layla, basically saying that, she did admit, and I had to look this up. I was like, damn, she's not wrong. This is the first ever women's Texas death match in ROH history, which is kind of bananas to think about. And she's putting the women's division on notice, saying that if anyone wants to get some, they can come find her. I'm just like, look, if we get badass Layla Hirsch, now that she has been baptized in fire, so to speak, by dislocating her elbow and then popping it back in after the match was over, I'm here for a badass Layla Hirsch. I mean, she's one of the women I feel like they need to make her a cornerstone for this women's division. Athena and Billy are doing a great job. Now I want legit Layla Hirsch to be a part of that.
Seems like a good person to challenge Red Velvet.
Yes, Red versus Layla would be fantastic. I'm misremembering, because I'm like, did Red beat Layla in the tournament? No, she didn't. Did she? I don't remember. But anyways, Red versus Layla, have them feud for the ROH Women's TV Championship will be great, while Billy is kind of busy being back to a minion again. So then we get into our next championship match of the evening. This is for the ROH World Television Championship. Robbie Eagles is challenging our current champion Atlantis Jr. So I'm probably going to get crucified on the cross for saying this. This was my favorite match of the whole evening. And only because
Mikey's not biased.
I mean, I am. Well, I mean, come on. I'm one of the CMLL hosts, so I am going to be hella biased. But if I'm being completely honest, for me, this is the best that ROH has presented Atlantis Jr. in terms of wrestling. And this is what I'm saying. Just pair him up with the TMDK guys or have him go off against like the New Japan folks. Like that, those styles of wrestler better suit Atlantis Jr.'s lucha libre style anyways. I really enjoyed this match. My only gripe with this, I was kind of bummed of how short it ended up going. And I'm going to be honest, we could have cut out like 10 minutes of our main event to give this extra time because we'll talk about that when we get there because I'm going to get heated. But I really enjoyed this match. And you know what? Atlantis Jr. proved me wrong. Andrew knows this from our TNA reviews. I hate the rack as a finisher and as a move. And I like the fact that we got a modified version of him of what I believe the rack should look like as a finisher, where you're doing the motion, but instead of standing in place, you're moving around the ring. I'm just like, okay, that's fine with me. This is fantastic. Again, I feel like I'm going to be crucified at the cross with this one. But before I go to my co-host, I'm going to bring somebody in here. Welcome to the party, JBL. Happy to have you here.
Oh, God, I've been here the whole time.
Sure you have, buddy. We're right now we're talking about Robbie Eagles versus Atlantis Jr. for the ROH Television Championship.
I was listening to it in the car. I know you guys were having some talks about a couple things there.
So again, I'm gonna be crucified on the cross here for this one. This is my favorite match of the evening, but I feel that I'm gonna be alone on this. But I'm gonna go to Andrew first. Andrew, how do we feel about our World Television Championship match?
So
that's a good start.
You're banned. I'm just kidding.
Yes, it was
and I came late.
It was a good match in the technical aspect of things. I don't want to say realization, but my feeling is I've yet to see a match where I've been overly impressed with Atlantis Jr. And I only have seen him in Ring of Honor, really. But every time I look at his matches, the best parts of his matches are not him. The other match of his that I really enjoyed was him versus Serpentico. But in that match, I was very impressed with what I saw from Serpentico. And I felt kind of the same thing with this with Robbie Eagles. I felt like Robbie Eagles did a lot of the heavy lifting. There was a lot more action from Atlantis Jr. than I've seen in his other matches, which was nice to actually get to see. But I once again came out of this match wanting to see more of Robbie Eagles than Atlantis Jr. And I feel like that's an issue when you're bringing somebody in from another promotion and that person is now holding one of your titles. We should be seeing them done in such a way and presented in such a way and able to showcase their abilities in such a way that makes me want to see them, makes me want them to hold that title or at least believe that they should hold that title. And I just don't have that feeling with Atlantis Jr. I don't know what it is. He just has not clicked with me, and it super impressed me.
Thank you for saying that, Andrew. Like, to jump in, I felt the same way through his run on this as well, where it seems like he's a figurehead just to bring in the CMLL crowd, and it's not bringing them in. So why is he holding it for this long then? There's nothing to make me want to cheer for him.
Jesse, same question to you. How did we feel about this ROH World Television Championship match?
I really don't have much to add that my other co-hosts have not said. Atlantis Jr., he definitely looked very technically sound, but I don't know, I feel like I need more. This match, I take it or leave it, which is never good to say for a championship match.
That is very fair. And now that I think about it too, as much as I'm biased toward Atlantis Jr., now that I've gotten a little bit of time with CMLL and the like who their bigger stars are, not to say that Atlantis isn't a big star, I'm still waiting, and I'm probably going to be waiting forever, and I'm probably going to need to give up on it. I want that rematch between him and Kyle at some point. Like, I don't know if we're getting it. We're probably not going to get it. And if I'm going to be completely honest, again, I love Atlantis Jr., but we're not doing anything good for him in terms of him being this champion. I'm just
it's not saying anything for the belt. Like, it's just the belt has a champion, and yes, he's not on on AEW a lot. He pops up once, but he's also not on ROH. Like, he's just kind of there. And if you want us to be excited about the main championship that's going to be on the brand because the other championship is just still on an AEW star, you got to put somebody who wants to be there and wrestle and wants to be part of ROH. He hasn't assimilated into ROH. He's still a CMLL champion holding the belt.
My other point to go along with that is that if this is a way to kind of entice people who watch Ring of Honor to go and watch CMLL, it's not doing that. Like, this isn't me going, oh, I really like him. Let me go watch what else they have to offer. It's me going, oh, he's here.
I think the other issue is that when you look at some of the other names that we've got from Mexican promotions, I mean, we've had Commander, Mortos, we had Vikingo for a long time before he got hurt. We had Metalik. We've had, we've had quite a few, Mexican wrestlers who have come in, especially luchadors, who have come in and been phenomenal and fan favorites. And I feel like we've been shown that they can fit into this world of Ring of Honor. Any of them would have been great to have as the champion because they also spent time here. So they felt like, I don't want to say they earned their spot, but they felt like they were part of the roster. And so there's just a lot of factors that just lead into this to just not making it feel like it fits right. And right now is a time in Ring of Honor where that's just one thing on a bunch of stuff that's just making Ring of Honor feel off.
Especially as they're in a taping spree. Like, this is not something they can fix too quickly because they've taped ahead and it's all in the same venue. So,
Well, Andrew, I'm glad that you brought up the fact that, earning your spot, so to speak, because this next person does not earn his spot and somehow managed to get a championship match. Because then we cut backstage with the board of not directors himself, Paul White, recapping, be like, hey, you know what? ROH is pretty great. And Tony Nese comes in and interrupts. Tony Nese cries about not, how unfair it is that Shibata once again is cheating. And Paul White calling out the fact, but it was 3-on-1 and you still managed to lose twice.
To the Iron Claw.
Yes, of all things. I'm saving my rage for when we talk about our main event because I got beef with everything and not the fun beef that we saw
not
earlier.
The good beef we had earlier.
Not the good beef. Not the good beef.
I was so happy with that beef. I was like,
yes.
I was back to Wendy's enjoying my beef.
I love it so much. But Tony Nese manages to complain enough to get a match where if he wins next week, he gets a championship match. I'm like, excuse me?
This is the first time I have to say that I've seen a professional wrestler in Ring of Honor who's been watching for more than a year pull the Karen card.
I hated it so much. I'm like, Tony Nese, I would be in your corner if you have not been consistently losing on ROH television.
Win a match first.
Seriously, we don't care about the premier athletes. You've maybe not done any. They're literally just, jobbers that actually have wrestling experience. And Tony Nese probably going to win his match, and he's probably going to get a championship match. And I don't care about that. I'm going to be honest with that.
Other than the tag team match where the premier athletes beat up some jobbers, local talent, a few weeks ago, I don't think Tony Nese has won a match since his feud with Ethan Page.
No. I'm going to be honest, you guys. If anyone in the Premier Athletes deserves to get a title shot is Josh Woods, but that's because Josh hasn't been there to take the majority of these losses.
He's in GCW right now, isn't he? Like, he's not doing anything else. No?
He was only there for Bloodsport.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's not doing anything.
I know. let's do Lee Moriarty and Josh Woods. Like, come on now. Like, that's money waiting to happen.
Josh Woods versus Atlantis Jr. for the television title.
Yeah,
Josh
yes,
Woods versus,
Yes.
like, I mean,
yes. I'm here for
Josh
this.
Woods versus Brian Cage in a meet-off.
Well, I mean, let's talk
Can
about
beef
Brian Cage.
referee?
Yes,
Oh
beef
my
referee. Beef's always in the
Yes.
middle.
Well, you brought up Brian Cage, so okay, let's talk about this, which is going to get my spicy Mikey for the episode because God, I hated this whole segment. So
Wolverine.
First and foremost, that was the only bright spot in here is the Wolverine inspired gear for Brian Cage. We can never be mad at Brian Cage here in this household. But we had a ROH World 6-Man Tag Team Championship match, and this was Cage of Agony, so the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage taking on our current champions, which is Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erichs. Okay. I don't know where to begin because this match was not great.
No,
There's
just
nowhere
let's
to
just end
begin.
here.
Just
This
put
is-
it there.
We'll just put it down like Old Yeller. This match was not great, you guys. Like, this was not good. And the Gates of Agony and Brian Cage tried. They tried their hardest. And you know what? They were the brightest spots in this whole match. And I have nothing against Dustin Rhodes. I think he is an absolute legend, and I will probably cry when he retires at the end of this year. But the Von Erichs, boys, again, we acknowledge your name
Boys?
holds.
Oh no! Don't say that. I'm sad.
They become the new boys. Or when Dalton comes back. Anyways, I know your family name holds weight on the wrestling scene, but you still ain't doing it for me. This is not great, you guys. And
When Katsuyori Shibata does your family's finishing move more like believably than you do.
he does it better, and he makes it more believable. So that was already, strike one, and this was already strike 1 and 2 immediately in this match. And then strike 3 happened like 10 minutes into this match because then all hell broke loose, and we're far enough in this. This was fucking stupid. So let me break this down for everybody, and then we'll talk about thoughts. Because we get a disqualification because we had the tandem of the Dark Order and the Undisputed Kingdom come in and attack Dustin and the Von Erichs for whatever reason. The Dark Order, I get, because they've been beefing for the last couple of weeks. This makes sense. Undisputed Kingdom, if you're not watching AEW, doesn't make sense to why they'd be attacking them because Dustin wants to come after those ROH Tag Team Championships. And, the Kingdom are like, oh, hell no, you ain't getting these. Then it just turns into a clusterfuck because then Sammy Guevara, Fuego del Sol, and SAP all run down to try to even the odds and fail in spectacular fashion. And it was just a cluster.
Do you remember how on the AEW podcast we talked about a triple threat for the trios titles and how that would look?
Yeah.
I'm starting to regret that we wanted to see that because this just gave me every bit of like, oh, right. You get more than 4 people in a ring, and AEW and ROH do not know how to book anything.
No. So what this tells me, and I just might be speculating a little bit. I think we're going to get a massive a massive team on team elimination style match. And I've talked a lot, so I want to go to my co-host because I don't want to just hold up, but I am pissed, I am disappointed, I am agitated, irritated, all the emotions. I'm going to come to you first, Andrew. So again, we don't need to talk about the match. But this is a cluster F, and ROH really pissed the pot in this one. But what are your overall thoughts of what transpired during this whole at the end of the show?
I mean, I knew it was going to be frustrating because you're putting up your most legitimate challengers for the titles against the champions that we know they're not going to beat at this point right now. I'm happy that Cage of Agony, the match ended the way it did because I didn't want to see them take a loss to, Von Erich Rhodes. And it was just frustrating. It did give me the one glimmer of hope that I got from this was, yes, it seems like they're going to probably do some sort of fatal 4-way 6-man tag match to compete against, who's going to be the champion, all that kind of stuff. The one glimmer of hope is that I hope it's because we're getting close to the end of the Texas tapings, and it means that we're now needing to crown new champions as we leave Texas, and the Von Erichs are not allowed to go out home past 10 o'clock.
They can't leave the state borders.
Yeah, it's past their curfew.
If I could touch on that real quick, and then I'll let you finish, Andrew.
Touch on that.
Tomorrow is the last day that AEW is in Arlington, Texas, because then all next week is coming from Cardiff. Like, we are literally, we're so close to All In. So next week is all international shows.
You mean Drew McIntyre's hometown of Cardiff?
I mean, sure, why not? Anyways, Andrew, continue.
But so that's my only hope, is that's what we're building to, and we're gonna get away from this this nostalgia, nepotism, local pop grab that we're trying to do with Von Erichs and Rhodes.
Damn. I mean, you're not wrong. Alrighty. AEW is really hard to try to make Texas like their big home base, because literally, and even, this is kind of related, but All In 2025 is going to be in Arlington in Texas next year. So that's an interesting choice. So whatever that is. All right, Jesse, I'm going to come to you next. This was a schmoz. We had like this overbooked mess at the end. How did we feel about the whole entire thing?
I hated it. I hated the whole thing. It just felt like a slap in the face. Like, follow us through this whole match, and then at the end, nothing matters. It was like an episode of Who's Lining It Anyway, and I love that show. This is like the absolute worst version of it, because nothing mattered.
This was giving me like we had what we had the night before to finish this project, and then this is what we presented.
I got more of a, we booked all this talent for multiple weeks. This is the last week we're going to have them there. We got to use them up to like make our money worth it. So let's just throw everyone in the ring at once to make sure everyone gets on TV and they get their paycheck, and Evil Uno can keep dressing like Mick Foley.
I hated this episode, and this really soured my mood, because I was enjoying this ROH episode. I had some problems with things that happened before this, and I was like, you know what? This was not this was okay, but this really soured me on this. That's why I gave this week a 5 out of 10 empanadas, because this really dragged it down for me.
I just had a epiphany of what they might be building to. So if they do lose the 6-man tag team titles because Von Erichs aren't staying in Ring of Honor, they've already hinted at Sammy and Dustin going after the tag team titles. So they could build this multi-team matchup, have the Kingdom be the reason why the Von Erichs and Rhodes don't make it through it, lose their titles and stuff, and then we get to see Rhodes and Guevara challenge the Undisputed Kingdom for the tag team titles. And if that happens, I feel like they might be the ones that dethrone the Undisputed Kingdom.
Oh my gosh, they probably would too.
I'm going to back this up because, Mikey, you and I have been watching this for a while, backing up to AEW booking from like 6 months to a year ago.
Oh, God.
Aren't they threatening to have Sammy and Jericho take the tag titles in AEW, and he left partially because he didn't want to be put with an older wrestler to go be a tag team?
He didn't want to be put with Jericho.
This is the same. I mean, it's not the same, but it's the same. You're stuck with a veteran wrestler where you're not going to get out from his shadow to be his tag partner again. He's just not a heel this time. He's a baby face. Like, Sammy.
So, okay, so I agree with you to a certain extent. However, at least to my knowledge, Dustin Rhodes is not a piece of shit like a person like Chris Jericho is. And Chris Jericho can burn in all the lakes of hell for all I care.
I just find it funny that he's again stuck in the same booking that we're going to put him in, just with a different veteran.
That's very fair. But hey, you know what? They might pull something, even though I would hate it, because we need to figure out what we're doing with the Undisputed Kingdom. But hey, maybe Dustin and Sammy try, but they don't win. I don't know. All I know is that as much as I love the Undisputed Kingdom, Matt Taven and Mike, Bennett are amazing wrestlers, but I think it's time for them to lose the titles. They pretty much ran through everybody at this point, and we need something new in this tag division. But I digress. I gave the show a 5 out of 10. Andrew, what did you give this week's ROH?
I gave this a 6.8. It was kind of middle of the road for me. It was average. On some of my scoring, it would give it a 7, but on principle, I wanted to give it a 6.5. So I kind of gave it somewhere in the middle there. It wasn't the worst Ring of Honor show that I've seen lately, and it's sad that that's the metric for quality that I'm looking at for these shows every week.
Jesse, how many empanadas do you give ROH this week?
I'm stuck right in the middle with 5. There were some things I had fun with, and some things that I questioned the decisions around. Most of the wrestling, I will say, was pretty good throughout, but it was more of the decisions when it comes to story and booking that really frustrated me. And they lost a lot of points only having one women's match on there.
Oh, absolutely. That was hot garbage. That we did get more women's action. This is ridiculous. And then JPL, how many empanadas did you give ROH this week? That is a very fair assessment.
But I will say it's because of the problems they had in the middle of it, and there was only one women's match when this has been not been a problem for them for a while. I did enjoy the horror themed tostada to the other side as Abaddon had come back. That was very exciting for me. But I'm a homer for Abaddon no matter what. That's just me.
Oh, we are too, and we talked about it. How much even though Abaddon's not going to overthrow Athena, at least we get more Abaddon on our television, and I think this is going to be a fun feud. Yeah, it's going to be a fun feud for everything. Alrighty, so that is the end. Boys, as much as we had ups and downs with this episode, thank you.
That's a different show. That's a different show.
I mean, that's very, very fair. We had our ups and downs. Fantastic. But that is going to be it for this week's episode of ROH. We will be back to our regular, normal schedule time.
I'm sorry. Hey, I
wasn't going to say... Hey, you outed yourself. I didn't say anything, and I wasn't going to.
I'm not ashamed of who I am, Mikey, okay? I'm still going to out myself at all times.
Well, before I get canceled, we will be back next week at our regular scheduled time for ROH. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll see you next week. But until then, sayonara, adios, and of course, Billy Stark's outro. Blah.
Au revoir.